That's something about Wednesday. Could be Wednesday. We mentioned something about, no, we mentioned something on Wednesday.
Oh, so I'll ask him. If you could do it tonight, it'd be great. I'll ask.
Yeah, no.
It is more than Tuesday? Oh, have to make it Friday.
Yeah, for a few months there.
Oh, sir.
That's all right.
What this?
I didn't even know a serving.
Parrots.
You didn't bring the, did you get an answer to that question?
Nope, you're gonna get it in a few minutes. Good morning. Ayom Kotzev Malachim Meruba. It's a special week. This week is Yutas Kislev. I hope everyone here is coming to Fabrengen Monday night, a terrific Fabrengen. And this is a year of Hakel. Make sure if you have a WhatsApp group, you post it on your group. And there should be Beroivam Hadas Melech. Like I spoke about the Shabbos, that Tzemach Tzedek said, La Yeshema Yeshua. So it's the Eibishter's covered. And it's, we know that the Alter Rebbe said that a person that joins the Yutas Kislev celebration will take him out, Min HaMeitzel HaMerchav. So, the Eibishter Alfim should be Batzlocha. And the it is that the Mashiach Tzedkeinu told Mashiach, that we should see it happening. Take it from me out.
Oh, man.
Someone asked me a question. Him and his brother, they live in Muncie. They look down the block and they see that the house is for sale. Okay? No, not their house. Ruvain lives.
Somebody.
One house. Shimon. A house is for sale. Oh, Daddy lives in Chicago and Mommy lives in Chicago. Why don't they come live with us in Muncie? They have a good idea. Okay. Parents agree. That's a good idea. Let's look into buying this house. There's a for sale sign, a big for sale sign on the house. For sale by owner. The older brother, Reuven, says, you never know. You call up a person that starts thinking that you really want it. He knows the two brothers on the block. Maybe the price goes up. I have a good friend. Levi, and he's an agent, a real estate agent. Ask him a favor. I told him Toiva that he should call up. I mean, here. I should call up and he should get the price for me. Give to Moshe, give to Mordechai. So he says, call up and see if you can get me a good price on the house. So the agent called, his friend calls up, and they say they want $775 for the house. Okay.
Not 770?
No.
Yeah, it might be cheap, but the taxes are very expensive.
So yeah. So the younger brother, Shimon, said, you know what, let me call up the seller. Calls up the seller. He says, we could do a cash deal. We don't need a broker. Yeah, okay, you know what? $625.
Ooh.
50,000 less. Oh, $50,000. Anyone could use $50,000.
$625.
I'm sorry, $725. I'm sorry, $725. I'm sorry. The difference was about 50,000. The numbers are maybe off by 1 or 2,000. It's not Shnegeya to the Shaila, but it's Negeya that it was a significant difference. 725. Now the broker finds out. He says, "You're cutting me out. You're mechuyev to pay me." I made a phone call. So the brother said, "Okay, you made a phone call. We'll give you $500. How much does the phone call cost?" He says, "No. I want 3% on the deal." So the Shaila person asked me, "What's the din? What's the din? What's the din?"
Was he soliciting?
No. So okay, let's look into it. It's people don't realize sometimes that there is a whole sugi about the tibuch v'shidduch. There is a Rosh Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. His name was Rabbi Yisrael Grossman. His son is Rabbi Yitzchak Grossman of Migdal Emek, the famous one. Who did not hear of Rabbi Grossman of Migdal Emek? His grandson is Dovi Hennig. He's a shliach in China, son-in-law of Rabbi Kirschenberg. Rabbi Grossman. It's very hard to judge that way. You have to ask him personally. You have to ask him personally what he says. I don't know. Well, very, very, very close to the Rebbe. He had a lot of brachos. There was a person that was here once. He told me the Rebbe said on him, "Oisei ploas." The Rebbe asked him to do many shlichus. He's makarav, unbelievable amount of Yidden, and he's an unbelievable person. His father was one of the very choshev Rosh Yeshivas. His father wrote an interesting sefer called Alichas Yisrael. Hilchos Tivach v'Shidduch. People don't realize that the agents, that it's halacha, a lot of times you have agents that are doing, and the old custom was, and also today, that if a shadchan makes a shidduch, he gets paid. He gets paid.
Yeah.
So the word in Toydus, going back 500, 600 years, the shadchan says, "I made a shidduch. They didn't pay me. They underpaid me. He's overcharging." There was a lot of precedent of Dinei Torah about shidduchim. So Rabbi Grossman wrote a sefer, very choshev Rosh Yeshiva. There's a skamis that at Shabina Rov is the first skam he writes. L'chvoid Hagon Hagodel Rabbi Yisrael Grossman Rosh Yeshiva Tem Chetmim Labavich Lud. Skamis from Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, long back and forth with Rav Eliyashiv, with Rav Urbach. Very, very choshev a sefer when it comes to figuring out tibuch v'shidduch. I'm just giving you just a background about one of the svarim that you could look in if you ever have a shaila about tibuch v'shidduch. Let's look inside about what the Gemara says. That's a conversation in the Gemara. He says you have to pay the safsar. Safsar is the middleman. If there was, Reuven and Shimon were doing a deal, and there was a sarsur. Levi was a sarsur in between. Here, Levi was a sarsur. He was a middleman. And now, say he was measuring how much oil they're going to take 10 gallons of oil, and he poured the oil and he broke the barrel. The sarsur broke the barrel. The sarsur has to pay. Why does the sarsur have to pay? The Tosfos says, "Pirush Rivam hoya sarsur b'neim u'model kederach sarsurim shemoidim b'schar v'nishbera achoves ayedei medida nishbera l'sarsur." In other words, because he gets paid, the sarsur gets paid. So there's a shem esachar, and a shem esachar has to pay for negligence, even though it wasn't gross negligence. It's like neva v'aveda. Wasn't it's not. He didn't take a hammer and break the barrel. Sachakal, he wasn't so careful. It wasn't that there was an earthquake and things started to shake. It wasn't that the wolf jumped into the store, but it's like neva v'aveda. Neva v'aveda is a certain amount of negligence that you lost it. You lost it. Why you lose it? You got it. Why didn't you guard it well? So Shem Achinom is potter. Shem Asachir is chayiv. So he said that he's chayiv. He's a Shem Asachir. He's getting paid for his job. Okay. So, but the bottom line is, we see from here that there's a concept of a sarsur, a middleman, and you have to pay him. The Ramos says in Choshe Mishpat, 2 places, the shatchan have a kamei sarsur, that a shatchan is like a sarsur. I have to explain before we continue. In the olden days, a shatchan wasn't only, oh, you have a son, your daughter, send me a shidduch profile. She likes an introvert, she's an extrovert. What is she like? Chassidus Shabbat, was Chassidus Shabbat mean? That wasn't what a shatchan did. No one cared. What does she want? What he wants? Introvert, extrovert, shmurt, bert, nishnageya, tall, short, good midas, bad midas. No one asked such questions. You have a son, you have a daughter. Okay. Now we established. Now let's talk about business. How much are you paying? How much am I? Does the dunya? What are the tanoim? That was the shatchan usually got involved. It shouldn't be negated to understand this. The shatchan didn't only mean that you have a son, you have a daughter. Oh, let's exchange shidduch profiles and let's figure out if she. Oh, after 3 days, what does he say? What does she say? That wasn't the job of the shatchan. That all that what he says, she says, nishnagay. No one cares.
Only business.
Exactly, only business. It was strictly business. So, but shidduchim sometimes fell on a, oh, he's not paying the nadunya. He's not.
The shidduch is a divorce, because the money goes back to.
No, but there was a Shulchan Aruch has a discussion. What happens if the shidduch got broken? So there, the din is that depends on the minhag hamokim. And if there's no minhag, we say he doesn't get paid unless they actually went to the chuppah. And then there's an interesting discussion because in those days they used to make. I'll explain. It's a little different today because that's why I'm giving a little bit of an introduction. The Shulchan Aruch says this. The Sma asks a question, but what in those days they used to make tanoim, right, when they made the shidduch, and if one of the sides breaks the shidduch, he has to pay a knas. So he has to pay, say, $1,000. So the shatchan says, you got $1,000 because I made this deal.
I have to get some.
So even though the shidduch broke, I want a percentage of the $1,000. So the Shulchan Aruch said and the Ramos says he doesn't get a nickel or a dime, and the Sma asks why, and the Sma and the Nesivus also both answer very gishmak teretz. They say that this is not a regular business. A shidduch at the end of the day is a shidduch, 2 people getting married, and in those days the knas that they gave, if one side breaks it, is for the agmas nefesh, and also sometimes harder later when it's a broken shidduch, it's harder to find. So it's a knas. Yeah. Right. And so therefore, this guy, the shatchan, doesn't not zoiche to get a part of that money. That the money he gets is only if they actually go to the chuppah. Anyway, today is a little different because the shatchan usually is not involved in the money things, because the money things usually the parties work out between themselves. That's the usual derech, and if not, they'll bring in a third. But not the shatchan is usually not involved on the money issue. Still, today the shatchan puts in a different type of work. After the first, the second, the third, the fourth date, eventually maybe the boy and girl are talking to each other. But the shatchan is talking to the mother, the kala, the mother, the chassan, back and forth, back and forth. What does he say? What does she say? So there's a considerable amount of work that goes in. And there is a minig medina in different places. Every place is different. Every kihila is different. You can't from one to the other, but there is a going rate of what a shatchan has to be paid, and you can't ignore it. People today consider it a very bad thing for the shidduch. If most shatchonim, I think, get paid, because I think most people are scared. They don't want that their children are getting married, and here is this guy is chayiv to get paid for making the shidduch, and he's not getting paid. Well, I think most people consider it not such a good. So the shatchonim get paid. I think.
What's the going rate these days?
I know one is going great in Chabad. That each side should give about $1,000, up $1,000 to $1,500. So the shatchan gets $2,000 to $3,000.
Not bad.
Sounds
I gotta be a
reasonable.
shot.
Huh?
Sounds good, especially since they're paying for the flowers 5,000, 10,000.
Yeah, a lot of times the shatchan puts in a lot of koiches
That's right.
till there could be a hit, but there could be so many misses and so many hours of koiches that goes in. I don't think it's. I think it's very nice. They call it kosher geld. You know what I mean? It's like okay, so it's in the Rosh Hashanah. It says there, Kesef Noitel, he has to get his money. It says it in the Rosh Hashanah. Okay. So we established that there's a concept of a shatchen, it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, that he has to get paid, and there's a concept of a sarser, a middleman between a kohen and a moicher. You're a seller, he's a buyer, and there's people, their whole living is a middleman. They're bringing the buyers to the seller to the buyer, and they have to get paid for their work. Why do they have to get paid? What's the din here? So let's read the Bir Agro in both places in the Shulchan Aruch about the shatchen, and we'll see what's the lomdus over here. The Gra writes, "Din shatchonas kosav maram shu medin yoyed bezdei chavere shloi bereshus shemois asoda soyelita shem din kama adam roitz alita mesoda zu lenoita kamashisa bababa metziv." Interesting din. Remember, I had a case. A person owned a storefront, and he rented it out to a suit store. And
Whole story, it's actually
huh?
the whole story.
The whole store?
Yeah.
A suit store. And then the person that the business didn't work out. So the landlord found a different tenant. So the business that Nebuch went out of business said, but I put in $100,000 in improvements on the store. I said, okay, but you broke the contract. So I broke the contract. So let's figure out how much I have to pay you damages for breaking the contract. You eventually found a different tenant anyway. So you lost, you lost rent 1 or 2 months. You lost $10,000, but I put in $100,000. So the landlord said, get out of here. So he thought he's going to win a landslide in Bezdin. So he came to me, and I told him, well, you got to be careful. You think you're legally, you're right, but al pidin, you're wrong, because there's a yod. The landlord was wrong al pidin, and read the Bezdin Paskand against him, because there's a concept. If I see you have an empty field, and I go in and I plant potatoes, yeah. And you go and you sell the potatoes. Can't say, listen, I told him not to plant the potatoes. Who asked him to go plant the potatoes? It's my field. No. It's a field. It's made to plant. He planted. You sold the potatoes. Put money on the table. Let's talk now how much you got to pay him. So that's another issue, how much you have to pay him. It depends, and there's many conditions here. Shaloi b'reshus, still. Shaman yad al yoina, shaman yad taktoina. This, you can't tell him walk away.
The person has the field, and I come back and okay, and I was putting the milk down there.
No, that's something else. Here's if a person this guy says he put capital improvement to 100,000 in my store, but who asked him? So the answer is you can't say who asked him. It's a store, it's there for rental. He did improvement, so we have to talk how much you have to pay, but you have to pay. Same thing here. This guy made a deal between two people. He planted idea in his head. The seller didn't realize the value of his property, or the buyer didn't realize the value of this deal. He planted the idea in their head. He facilitated a deal. It's like that's number one, says the Gra. Number two, he says, second thing he says, same thing the Bir Agro and Simakuf Pei, Pirish Maram, time of the Sarser Netel Schar, Alpha Bishaloy Sholche. A Sarser could get paid even if you didn't send him. In other words, the Gra is saying like this, that there's two dinim in Sarser. If I send a guy, I say, could you please find me a house? Or the person who's trying to sell his house contacts the agent. They say, could you please sell the house for me? Could you put it on the market for me? So then, obviously, he's like my poyel. He's my shliach. I have a worker digging in the ground for me. Can I not pay him? I have to pay him. So I say, oh, but you didn't sell him. But what, he has to get paid. I asked him to do work for me. I asked him to dig because I'm making a foundation. So you know what? This guy doesn't want to do the job with me. So forget it. It's a hole in the ground. I said, let's stuff it back up with sand. Oh, I don't have to pay you now because you can't say that. So if you contact an agent, you say, could you sell the house for me? And he started and he put up a sign and he's working. And then you found your friend and you sold it directly to him. So you can't tell the agent, oh, I sold the house. But The guy says, you made me a shliach. You asked me to do a job. You promised me 3%. I put up a sign. I did the work. Who asked you to go sell it behind my back? So that's number one. That's as a shliach. But even if the sarasot is not a shliach, I never asked him. The seller didn't ask him. The buyer didn't ask him. But Lapoili did facilitate the deal. He made the deal between the seller and the buyer. So still, they have to pay him because that's the That's what he's saying, and that's the vasar so bame atzma kem yod stay chaveda venot da babrin be baba metzia daf kufal pitmer ayor le stay chaveda vechem besar so kim shos limker vechem beshatchonus shos lisa isha who also li nosel ish. It's like the girl says, just like a field which is also lita or a store that's also lahaskir. A girl wants to marry a boy wants to get married to a girl. What do you tell me? The father says, nah, I didn't need a shatchen. Well, who needs a shatchen? A boy meets girl, haknish and chinik. Mr. Fruma Yid, you need a shatchen. Don't tell me stories. Don't tell me stories. That's what the girl says. If you're a Jewish family, you need a shatchen. So you didn't contact the shatchen? Who cares you didn't contact the shatchen? But the shatchen did a job for you, you got to pay. So bottom line, we see from the Mishnah and the Gemara that there's a concept of a sarsu, a middleman, as mechuyev to pay. According to the Gra, there could be two reasons, or two lomdas why you have to pay the agent, the middleman, the shatchen or the agent, the real estate agent, chulu v'chulu. One is he's your shliach, and even if you're not your shliach, this is like in a shatchonis, the father, the kala, and the mother kala wants her to get married, and and he facilitated. So Yodik, they say he did a good job. You got to pay him. Okay, bottom line. And now in our shaila. So let's analyze the shaila that I said with Reuven Shimon in the house in Muncie. So in our shaila is like this: if we should talk medin yoyel deistei chaveda, that a person, you have to be mashbiach, you have to have a shvach. Like in the case that I was talking about, the guy had a store in Borough Park on 13th Avenue, and the tenant put in $100,000. A store is also to lahaskir for people to use it, either as a shoe store or as a jacket store or as a restaurant. That's what the stores are doing on 13th Avenue. And this person put in $100,000 of improvement. He put in air conditioning, floor, ceiling, and plumbing and everything. But here, so even if you didn't ask him, the landlord said, I didn't ask. Well, he didn't ask. Who cares he didn't ask? But the guy put in $100,000 in your building, and it's good for you.
If you said I could have got a contract.
Oh, so how much to pay? Oh, okay. So that was a separate than Torah. How much to pay? But, okay, that was a separate thing. But you can't say he walked away penniless. So now this agent, if you're saying mitzad this taina, the agent get not a nickel, not a dime, because Shimon, the younger brother, says, I got a better deal. So you're noiteya. What were you noiteya? You were oiker. You were not noiteya. You didn't plant. You didn't give me an extra nickel or dime. If anything from you, I would lose 50,000, not gain. The only shaila here would be mitzat shlichus, because the older brother contacted the agent. So if you should say the first lumnus of the Gra, which is that he's a shliach, that I he's my worker. So say, look, you asked me to do a job. I did the job for you. The shaila here is, what job did we ask him to do? We asked him to get a good deal, and he didn't get a good deal. He got a bad deal. So the agent says, no, I got you a good deal. But the younger brother says, you got me a bad deal. I got it for 50,000 less. So this is my shaila here. This is my shaila. So I want to tell you what I think, being ma'ayan, but we'll look at together in the Makoidis, and you can decide on your own. Look at the fourth paragraph from the top. Nearly the cost of Ramah. The Ramah writes in Siman Chosher Mishpat Siman Kuf Pei Vav. Reuven hoyeloi bayis limkur Boshim and Besirsa Lamochri Lelevi. Reuven wanted to had a house, and a agent came and convinced him to sell the house to Levi. Amar Reuven shalevi soin of inner limkur le. Achach mocher Levi the acher. Chayv litn l'shim sarzorus. Before reading it inside, I just want to explain the story. The Noida Yehuda has a murder kechidush here. He says the Moker Adin is the Rosh, and the Ramah was machadash even more. There was a seller and a buyer. So the agent says, and they made a whole deal, and the day before closing, the seller says, I hate that guy. I just hate him. I'm selling it to anyone in the world. I don't want to forget. Get out of here. No deal. Get out of here. Okay. What could the agent do? He walks out of his office. 3 days later, he finds out they closed the deal. So he goes to the Rosh. He says, Rosh says, the guy was a Ramai. He doesn't hate the buyer. He hates to spend money. And he's a Ramai. He wanted to cut you out from the deal. So the Rosh said he's mechuyev to pay. Okay. Came the Ramah and brought the din and added one word. The Noid says that's a chiddush in this one word. That even though what happened in the case of the Ramah added a word, it wasn't the case of the Rosh. That this deal went through, but the seller brought in a second agent. So the second agent could say, and the seller could say, I'm not a Ramah. I really can't stand the buyer. But this second agent, he has a way with words. He knew how to make the deal right. Still, you can't cut out the first guy from the deal. You can't cut the first guy out of the deal. The Noid Buda says that Ramah didn't mean that the first one gets 100% of the thing. They have to split. How much is now a shaila? 50-50, a shlish and 2 shlish, and the first get maybe that's there's another shaila about how much he has to get paid. But the Noid Buda says it didn't. That Ramah never meant that the second agent should not get paid, and the first should get paid. Now there's a whole sugya about shatchonis, about a maschil and a goymer. So there's a whole, again, like I said, this is 500, 600 years shidduchim making and din Toiris. So a lot of din Toiris went on like this. There was a guy that suggested a shidduch. It started and then say, forget about it. Then there was someone else that picked up from where. So there was this concept called the maschil and the goymer. How much does the maschil get and how much? The common minig a lot of time was right. So the maschil got 1/3 and the goymer got 2/3. That was a common minig between the maschil and the goymer. Okay, so I want to, because it's this week's parish, we're talking about Yosef HaTzadik. Help the Eibishter that there's an acute connection to Yosef HaTzadik. Let's read in the brackets, the last piece in the line, the page here. Hevi Mashev Yaakov. The Shev Yaakov says, "Zaklal. Boifen she'ef shaloimer iluli shehoya zeh amaschil asher yisoyer lo zeh lo yoyel al das acherim ledvar shidduch halos and came vade mechuyev little amaschil kefi aminet." Mashenkenim agoymerim nesoyer lematzim al oitzon shidduch besoymerim lefidaitem shem Rishon. Nida the rotzlem shnika gam ken lebezden came shemakam rochik kai gavna. In ken amaschil lo yosu shum pula toiv bezeh. He says here. He says like this. So sometimes you have to know if the goymer, say the Bezdin realizes that the goymer is an honest person. A guy came from a different city. He didn't know what was going on. The day he came to the city, he walked in my smell. He sees a bocher. A fine bocher. As soon as he sees the bocher, he goes to his friends and says, "You have a daughter? Nah, they already spoke about it. No. And he makes the shidduch happen. And the Bezdin is nicket to Bezdin that this goymer, he didn't know from the maskell. He came from another town, and so it's nicket that the maskell didn't do any pula toiva here, because the mechotanim gained nothing from the maskell. The goymer, it was his idea, and he reinvented the wheel, but he didn't know about it. So then the maskell gets nothing. But if the maskell came up with the machshava toiva and he planted this thought, this idea that maybe these two families, this boy and girl could get together, Elamai was not matzliach to bring them to the table and to seal the deal, and the goymer was matzliach. So then they have to share the profit, and the 1/3 goes to the maskell and 2/3 to the goymer. So he says like this: Shev Yankov Alomdas. Hel Shabadin Einoi. Now there's a whole sugya that if you finish the mitzvah nikra al shem gomer. If you finish the mitzvah, it's as if you did it. So even though Moshe picked up the bones of Yosef, because the Yidden finished it, so it's considered they did it. As is like the Gemara. Because Shalzem and Medrash Yalkut Tehillim, Mizmashich Chanukas Abayis LaDavid, Chidavid, Bonoi, we say Mizmashich Chanukas Abayis LaDavid, it's the Balsum Chanukah, right? Shloima did it. So what's Chanukas Abayis LaDavid? Valoi Shloima Benoi, Elama Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hel v'chashavta levnoisai, it'll be Nikra al Shmecha. So, what's Chastira? Why is a Moshe Rabbeinu? It wasn't Nikra al Shmoy because he didn't finish it. And David HaMelech, even though he didn't finish it, was Nikra al Shmoy. Zog the Sheviyankev Api Achilu Kanal Ose Shab. The guy be'atzmas Yosef. Belas Chola de Moshe Yagam Ken Eskayim Vada Yosef Mitzvah Yidei Achedim. Mishum Shvua, because Yosef HaTzadik made a shvua that he didn't have to take up his bones. So Emestak, when everyone was busy collecting money, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't care about money, and he ran to do the mitzvah. But if he didn't run to the mitzvah, eventually, when the guys had filled up all their pockets with gold and diamonds, listen, we made a shvua. We can't go out Mitzrayim before taking Yosef HaTzadik. Rag de Amru, Anicheloi Kovet Begdoilim, Kedisa, awesome. And okay, Nikir al Shem HaGoymer, even the Lav Shekodem HaMaschel, HaGoymer Nami Maschel. Listen to the end. Oh, so there. Mashenkem bebinyan beis hamikdash. Just let me read it. Mashenkem bebinyan beis hamikdash. The lo nikva zaman kovua lebinyan. The love disorder David. Ev shelo yoyim disorder melech acher. Kemo shelo disorder shol hamelech. Lechei nikra al shmoi. So he says that you see, Shol HaMelech was a king. To go build a beautiful beis hamikdash. So could be if David was never started the project and then conquered Yerushalayim and prepared the land so no, we're there. We'll make a little shtibel over there. We'll make like in the Neuve Givoin and Shiloh, make a kleine shtibel. So David HaMelech is the one that came up with the idea. He was really the architect of the whole idea. He conquered the city. He planned it out. It wasn't Stam. So I thought David HaMelech had it. And the Eibishter told him, "Ataloitiv na'bois." But the whole idea of where to situate Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash and it's all the brainchild of David HaMelech. Even if you won't, obviously to us we know it's Ruach HaKodesh, but today if if you study in Israel, they say David HaMelech was brilliant. Like we figured out where to put the capital and there was a neutral space. It's probably also true. So Binei Uminei. David HaMelech came up with an unbelievable plan of where to situate the Beis HaMikdash, and he bought the space, he prepared the space. And Lamai David said you can't finish it, so you can't say, if David didn't think of it, someone else. How do you know? There were already 400 years in Eretz Yisrael. No one ever thought of that grand plan of this beautiful of a capital city, and the main part of the capital city, the highest point, is the Beis HaMikdash. And Taka that stood there for 410 years, and second 420 years, and Mishaloroi Beis HaMikdash Binyan Minyamavus Begashmi is the nicest building that any people in the world came and they saw. So this idea, David HaMelech came up with this idea. Mashenkim by Yosef HaTzadik. Taka Moshe chapped the mitzvah first, but if Moshe didn't chap it, someone else would do it. It was Kishbeish Biyas B'nai Yisrael. So therefore, if the Shadchan can prove, it's needed to Bezdin. That he Bechal didn't know. It's his grand plan, this idea, so he doesn't have to split the profit with the Maschil. But if the Maschil says it's needed to Bezdin that the Maschil came up with a good idea, like David HaMelech, so then he does have to split. You disagree with the Lomdus?
It's not the Lomdus is good, but not Nishlemas. Nishlemas, the Lomdus is good, but Nishlemas. Why? But Midrash. We have a Midrash. All of them itasku b'bizah. Moshe, he went to the I'm trying to say, Yosef, where are you? Liot nakim mishvuatcha, or reveal yourself or nothing. Then the Midrash said Aaron come up, so, and then Moshe took it. Now, by the other Nidon, of David, he's not. David, he was everything like you say. He's the one that he brought the idea. He's the one, the architect. He's the one. Boreolam said no. Shlomo bin Chaimor, lo ata. That's why Mizmor leDavid. Okay? בגלל שאתה היה לך מחשבה טובה, כשהוא צירפה למעשה. Klal Israel, maybe they're gonna
Okay.
forget of Moshe.
Okay.
They're gonna forget of Yosef.
Okay.
Why? It has Kuba Biza.
I hear.
The only one is Moshe Rabbeinu that he didn't go to the Biza. So then,
If you
okay,
if you could, I hear.
I don't know if this is a more current mice or it's a Gemara that two Rabbanim are walking and they're being mefalpel, and then they hear like they're walking behind a woodcutter and they see that they say the zug back and forth the whole shakavataria, and the Rabbanim had major chalisha zadas. I don't know if this is a Gemara or
There's a story of the Beis Yosef, Magid Meshonim, that he said that because you already brought it into the
you
world.
brought it into the world. So I would say if that mice is true, that would affect this also, because meaning even if this guy just showed up from another town and never met these two people before, because the other shot
Because he
brought the idea into the world, he was able to be
Okay. Let's go back now to our sugya. Our sugya is not so much touched by this thing. I just have to share this. Okay. So I found a beautiful tshuva in the Sefer Alichus Yisrael. As I mentioned before, there is one of the choshev svarim today to look about Tivach V'Shidduch is the Sefer Alichus Yisrael from Rabbi Yisrael Grossman. Yisrael Grossman, as I mentioned, was a very choshev Rosh Yeshiva, is Rosh Shimon Lubavitch, Timon Lubavitch. His son is Rabbi Yitzchak Grossman in Migdal HaEmek. That's his son. They wanted to make him chief rabbi of Eretz Yisrael. So he said, my father came to me in my dream and told me I shouldn't do it. Stories I hints I had.
he come from Yerushalayim, I know him.
Yeah.
He come from Yerushalayim. He put himself in Migdal HaEmek. Was there our uncle, Rabbi I Buskila, alav shalom. That's the uncle of that Buskila here. And he was, he was in Shamish like the Rav there. He said, Baruch haba, you came now. Lecha mishpatam bechora. He has how many? 7,000 Talmidim right now?
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem.
His grandson is
Right. His grandson is Rabbi Kirshner's son-in-law. Baruch Hashem. So he has a very, he's a very special person. It's on this Yerushalayim also. But he has, so one of his very important svarim is Alichus Yisrael. Alichus Yisrael is all about Tivach V'Shidduch. So he brings over there from a sefer Mishmeres Sholem. I don't know who the Mishmeres Sholem is. I couldn't find and looking for it. So, but advice is to reliable sefer. He quotes some. So he says like this. No. I don't know. I don't think so. So he says like this. It's a sefer in Choshen Mishpat. Needed the sagi, the second paragraph here, second line. He says needed the sagi im diber ma'oisa. So he's talking about the case in the Shulchan Aruch that Shulchan Aruch was talking about. That again, we mentioned that the Rama says that when there was a buyer and a seller, and the buyer cut out the agent. The buyer says, "Get out of here! I don't like this." The seller says, "I don't like the buyer," and then he cuts him out, or he brings in another agent. So let's see what the Mishmeres Sholem says about this. It says, "Needed the sagim diber me'oise erech af shegamar b'pochas hayoise." The agent has to be paid if he got them together on a price, and lepoil they take sold it le'erech that price, $5 more, $5 less. I don't care. V'chein, a second condition. If one of the two sides says, I don't care the price, I want this property, so then at least the sarsud has the din of a maschet. But if the guy says, no, this deal ain't happening unless I get a good price, so then you have to go back to the first rule. There has to be that they were going by more or less that amount. V'gam kosav sham she'im hamekach lo yudu lakoin o she'amoicher lo yoda she'ploinen mu'unyan liknes av shelo diber minyan hamachir yesh lo din maschel. If the buyer didn't know of the seller, or the seller didn't know of the buyer, so then he has also the din of a maschel. So that means like this. So you know what? Let's go in our case. Simple. In our case, we're talking about the buyer's agent, but the buyer already knew about the house. So to say that he has a schus because he planted in his mind this idea, no, Reuven Shimon saw the house down the block. So that's nothing. To say that to say they didn't care about the price. The Befedish did care about the price. That's why they contacted him. So now, if they're going to close the deal at, as I said, the price that the agent got was Lamazong 775. Yeah, they'll close at 770. They still have to pay the agent because he got them together on a price at $5 more, $5 less gamish. But if it's a significant discount, they got it at 50,000 less. They don't have to pay him a nickel, a dime, even as a maschil. That's the shit of the Mishmeret Sholem. So clearly, the Mishmeret Sholem hold this. This is not. This is what he's saying. He's saying they only have to pay if they were nigmar, either because I sent an agent, I didn't know where the house is, and he found me the house, or I knew the house, but he got us together on a price, and now we want to cut him out. It's not fair, but we taka closed on that price. But if we end up closing on a totally different price far away, then it's the charayat t'chonish getin, so he's out. So I think the lomdus here was be like this: that I sent him as a shliach. He didn't do my shlichus. It's not like he did work and I'm cutting him out. I asked him, I see the house. I know about the house. Don't tell me about the house. I want you to get it for me for a good price. So he tried. He got the 775, but I called myself and I got for 725. So that's what the Mishmeret Sholem is saying. It's clear. That's what he's saying. You'd only have to pay your agent if you didn't know about the house and he found you the house, or you knew about the house and he got you a certain price and you closed on that price. $50,000 on a deal that's $700,000 letter give and take is not pochus or yosef. That's a significant amount. It's a very big chunk of cash here. So they're not closing on pochus v'yosef. So therefore, you could cut out. And just like it makes no difference if it's mitzad the agent and mitzad the. And the story of the Shulchan Aruch is that the agent is in the side of the moichet. Here is in the cut. What difference does it make?
The Eric, that was the difference. If $5 to $20, maybe I'll see the market get only $20. That's okay. But because that's what it's not a big difference, but with a chunk of big money, so it cannot be in that chunk of big money. So there is not nechshav in the market.
Right. I'm saying if they ended up closing it's a different deal. No, this is not. They sent them a
so probably certain kind of money, some that's he would be market, and there's some of chunk that is not going to be a market. There's nothing garnish.
Right. Okay, so I'll leave it at this. This is the din. Obviously, a person could always be Yoshev Atoiv. A person could always call the agent and be Matthias, and it makes no difference what the din is. If you're Matthias another Yid, then you pay him, and he's happy, and you're happy, and the Rabban Shalom is happy. The Gemara says that the Melech was a Sisa Yoshev Atoiv, that by him was he always tried to figure out that both parties should be happy through making a pshara. Whenever you make a pshara, the Eibush is happy. But there's a lot of times you want to know where's the din is noita. So that's how you make a pshara. So this is where I think the din is noita. Someone asked me last week. He wakes up early in the morning, and he wants to know, could you say brachas bechsatoyre krishma? What could you say if he wakes up early in the morning? Negovasa. What can you do and what can't you do? Before Alois HaShachar, after Alois HaShachar, before Netzacham, after Netzacham. If you wake up 4 o'clock in the morning, so what do you do? What could you do? What can't you do? Could you make the bracha al natilas yadayim? Could you make all the brachas, say all the brachas, and what could you do? That's the question. The person that asked, I think, wasn't going back to sleep, but you could ask that question too, and that'll be all answered here. So I'm bringing together 4 different pieces in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. That will give you a full picture on the question, to answer the question. Number 1, the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch Siman Dalet. Hamashkim koydem alois hashachar v'notel yodav. Tov sheyachli ayar al yodav gimel pomim kedinim ksheyoyer ayoyim mipnei she'efsher shelayli hagoremas sheyishre ruach ra liyadayim afilu balashina. The Alter Rebbe says it's a suffix by us. It's a suffix. So when he wakes up, he does natilas yadayim. But could be that the Ruach Ra is from the Laila. So as soon as Alois HaShachar happens, he should wash his hands a second time. If you went back to sleep, then he has to wash his hands. There's no question. However, afal pichein lo yivarach al netila zu. You shouldn't make a bracha. The lo tiknu birchas al netilas yadayim elok shenasa berya chadosha k'moshen is born, which besif Allah from the Rashba that the person is a berya chadosha, and he's going in to do the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, the avodah Hashem for the day. Ubishin is Hashem is lo nasa berya chadosha. The pam echad nasa berya chadosha v'lo is beipamim. So basically, Al Rebbe is saying, I don't care if you go back to sleep or not. The halach is always the same. Well, we're getting in a second. I'm talking now about Netilas Yadayim. The Al Rebbe is mashma.
That's what I'm wondering in that say why the Rav he didn't bring the day of the Hagra. Hagra he said you're not kind the Arba'ah having this room. That's what.
No, but he's not talking about how many times. He's No, yeah, he's talking about. He says 3 times.
But
Okay.
Ruach Ra, according to the Hagra,
Okay.
and the Hagra, he was in the time of the
Okay.
Akbar Zaken Alav Hashem.
Okay. The Al Rebbe says 3 times.
Al
Rebbe says 3 times. Okay.
I'm wondering why
Huh?
he didn't bring.
No, that's probably shitting shit, whatever, like a half hour.
Right.
I don't know. The Al Rebbe didn't bring it. So bottom line is, you see that the Al Rebbe holds that that a person has to watch. So what you see from here is the Al Rebbe holds that you make the bracha whenever you wake up, you wash until Saddam, you make the bracha. Now, if you go back to sleep, even if you don't have to sleep, you're gonna have to do a second time by Lois HaShachar without a bracha. So you see clearly, whenever you wake, if you go to sleep for the night, you wake up 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, you do Netilas Yadayim, never mind how many times, and you make the bracha. Now, after Alois HaShachar, you have to do a second time this time. If you did go to sleep, if you didn't go to sleep. That's it. Okay. So that answers question number 1. The second time without a bracha, the first time with a bracha. Okay, second point. Shulchan Aruch Rabbeinu Siman Vav. Hamashkem lokum v'yedei shetzarich oid lishim pam beis. Shinas keva. Yomar. He knows he's later again. He slept only 3-4 hours. He's going to want to sleep later again. Yomar l'kain neshama b'li chtzima. B'sheyirtza lishim pam beis. Yomar b'chzam apel b'li psicha. Yomar borach hamapel. Ad chtzima v'loyd b'chlal. So you shouldn't say Shem Hashem twice in a Lakai Neshama or in Amapel. Kshiyakim Pambez, Yom Lakai Neshama im Chasimos. Avabichas al Natilas Yadayim lo Yavorach Harak Shakama Metasav Pam Rishon Kamosh Kasavnu B'Sim Dal, which is the piece we just read before. So it's clear that if you're not planning to go back to sleep, Lakai Neshama, you could say, if you're not planning to go back to sleep, you woke up. The Gemara says, he wakes up in the morning, he makes it. So if you know you're not going back to sleep, you make right away l'kain neshama. Okay. Now, there's no question that if you went to the bathroom, so you make ashayotza, so now you make the 3. Alter Sidaim, ashayotza, l'kain neshama. Good, that's done. Now let's go to the next. Now let's start the Bechaz HaShachar. Before Alois. No problem. Before Alois. That's if he's not planning to go to sleep again. If he's planning to go to sleep again, he should say Elokai Neshama B'li Shem Malchus and say again. Okay. In the Siv is again. There's a next piece is about Bechaz HaShachar. Shulchan Aruch Rabbeinu Siman Mem Zayin. It says Hamashkim Koydem Or Hayoim. It wakes up before Alois HaShachar. Yochel Avorach Kol Tzeder Brachas. Chutz and Bechaz Anois and L'Sech V'Vino Parshas Atomid. Ein Siman Aleph. She'emtem Elohim ad sheyoyer hayoim, when the city says Alois HaShachar. V'imshama kol tarnagol yochel levorach anoisen l'sech v'vina miyadach chatzos halayla. There's a problem. How can you say anoisen l'sech v'vina l'avche ben yom v'loylo when the sechvi didn't yet make noise? So if you heard a sechvi make noise, if you heard the sechvi make noise, you're probably not living in Brooklyn. So if you heard the sechvi make noise, so then from the chatzos you could already make the bracha. But if you didn't, you have to wait for Alois HaShachar. Another thing you have to wait for Alois HaShachar is if you're saying the tefillah, those that say in the morning, the Seder HaKorbanos. So the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash only happened by Yom, not by Laila. So you could say the parshas of the Kiyur and parshas Trumas Hadeshen, because that was done before Alois HaShachar. But parshas Hatomid, that was only done after Sheyeir Hayom. Even though in the Beis Hamikdash they waited at Sheyeir Bechevron, because Pamachas there was Niskalkel, they made him okay. But Lepoil, the time is alois hashachar. So that's the bottom line. You got to wait for anois lasech vivina until alois. All the other brachas you could make. All the other brachas you could make.
So we say again, which ones you have to wait for?
Alois lasechvi. Anois lasechvi. You have to wait for alois hashachar. Now one more piece. Now to the Shulchan Aruch about Zman Krishma. Zman Krishma sheshachas min haTorah hu mishalam dashachar. Shoz mitzvos me'adam regilam lakum mitas. Af b'shemuotim haram haTorah uvkumech loshen yochid lo mishalchem afachamiyut. Aval haKoyda koydem lachen lo tzedei chavas min haTorah. Af shemitzvos me'adam kamim gam ken koledem malayis hashachar mikro. Vein elchem acher v'chom asar choker v'geder v'tiknem shalikra l'katchil ad shah shedarken sheroy b'nei adam lakum mimitas. Deine sheyoyer hayoim kol kach ad shiris chaveda v'richuk dal adamas ve'akirenu v'sherogel ima iktsas. Shemrogel maharbi akirenu pochas afilo merchik harbe. V'mein rogel lo yakirenu afilo b'kiruv. Elo k'mo yachzani sherogel lo v'leketzit. So he's saying the Chachamim really that the zman of saying Shema is alois hashachar. Because as a v'shach when you go to sleep, uvkumecha when you wake up. That people, the derech klal in those days when they didn't have electricity, people woke up at the crack of dawn. So the Chacham said, we want you to wait a little bit. Maybe you're making a mistake. You think it's alois hashachar. So in Chabad, the minig is to say krishma ktana, which is to say krishma in order to make sure, just in case I'm going to miss the zman. So you know what? So I'd say like this: if it's before alois hashachar, there's no point saying krishma ktana. You're fooling yourself. I mean, there's nothing. You could you could say parshas hamon, but it makes no difference before alois hashachar. If it's alois hashachar already, even if it's before the zman, or you're not sure what's the zman of gachi yakir, and you're already saying everything. So, and you're scared that later you're going to get involved in something and you're going to miss the Zman Krishma. So you have nothing to lose. Because min haTorah, you can already say Krishma from alois hashachar. So really the only thing you have to, if it's before alois hashachar, you have to skip out anois lasech vivina, which you could say later. After alois hashachar, you could say everything. Everything. If you can wait with Krishma ktana until Sheyakir, the Zman of Sheyakir is better, but if you think you're going to forget, and you just, at least min haTorah, you already said Krishma Bezman Krishma, and you have nothing to lose. You didn't make any bracha levatollah. So bottom line, you went to sleep, you woke up. Even if it's before alois hashachar, you could say everything. But nois lasechvi Krishma, and if you're going to say the korbanos, you could say only until Parshas Atomid. Okay, there was a shaila. So that someone once asked the Rebbe. The Chassidim found out what was the Rebbe's Chasna day, or the Shatchen came. There was a Shatchen, and he was a Chassid, and he came to the Rebbe many years after they got married. It was 50 years after they got married. So he was already a Zokin. He was a big Askin. Rabbi Altois, he built up a lot of the Chabad institutions at Yisrael, at Sefer Lamlacha, and so on. And he said, my father was a Shatchen, and as far as I know, you never paid him. So the Rebbe said, so how would you like me to pay? He said, it's your wedding day, so you should make a fabrengen. So the Rebbe said, okay, mask him. He made a fabrengen. So the Rebbe started off the fabrengen asking, are you allowed to celebrate an anniversary of a wedding? We don't find such a thing in the Torah. So first the Rebbe said, that I'm off finished Shulchan Aruch saying Tov Leiv Mishta Tamid. You could always make a Mishta. But the Rebbe then said that the Rebbe said, because the Chazal say Holach Lakarta Oza B'Limusim. If you go to a place, you should do the Nimusim of that place. So obviously he does everything L'Shem Shemayim B'Chol Derchecha Do'eyu. But still, there's such a thing as Oz Lakarta Oz L'Kenimusim. So Yosi said in the Western worlds, and in America, that people celebrate the wedding day as a Chosheva day. So a Yid could use it, the Shem Shemayim, to get his friends together and talk about the Yonim Shemir Shemayim, talk Divrei Torah, So Ozel Akarta, Halach B'nai Musa. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong. So yeah, this week Parsha is all about getting married. Anyway, so you see from here that the Rebbe's opinion that there's nothing wrong. Adarabba, Vadarabba. The Rebbe at that time spoke about the mile of having a pushka in the house. The Yiddish house is right when you come in. You see that it's a makom tzedakah. It's a makom of the three amudim, Torah, Tefillah, tzedakah. So anyway, to this question about is it a Jewish thing to make a wedding anniversary? It's a very Jewish thing. Befrat if you make your wife happy, and Chazal say that this is like a moed de gezach. So
Same shayla, if you could make a bar mitzvah of your girl.
That's mitzvah.
That's the Gemara in Nazir.
What?
The Gemara in Nazir.
Says what?
If you could make a bar mitzvah, today they know how to make
Bat mitzvah.
Yes, if you can, because the reason why that shayla comes, because they've Torah Talmud Torah. So now it's she become bat mitzvah.
Yeah.
So what kind of bat mitzvah made? A zachar, this,
Right.
this bat mitzvah. So the Rebbe also is asking, yes,
To make a bat mitzvah.
so dumping bat mitzvah lechanech otam b'zeh.
Okay,
A
David.
wife, you have a mitzvah to make happy. A daughter, you have a mitzvah to make miserable.
Shalom, that's not miserable. That's not, we're not saying miserable.
No, I'm
No,
joking.
that's
I'm
joking.
joking.
Like a bikuta. Oh, okay.
A wife,
Okay.
you have to work to want to make her happy. A daughter comes naturally.
It's a wonderful week. David shall helfen. Osimar, Malcolm Mashiach, Yefutza meine Sache, Chutza. Soll sein lichtig, lehudem eise oide v'simcha.
Okay.
Question still the store. I'm make improvements. As soon as he comes in, his question already, it's not even on to him.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But this is a store that was made in order to rent out, and he made improvements, capital improvements.
The landlord.
So the the tenant. So the landlord has to pay the tenant for the improvement. He doesn't have to pay him top dollar. He has to pay him. He has to pay him. Whatever, depends. There's a lot of dinim about how much he has to pay him. Depends, whatever. But he has to pay him.
Yeah.
Very good. That's fair.
We'll see you Monday night.
Okay.
Beretsky, 8:00. Beautiful Fabrengi. It's Kedai to come. Yeah, Tuesday night we'll go tomorrow, yeah.
Food for
Yeah, we're having a beautiful caterer. It's gonna be very nice.
He's one of the sponsors.
We'll look at one of the sponsors, yes.
Tuesday morning tomorrow.
Tuesday morning, it's Tuesday night, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to you. Welcome to you.
Okay. Lincoln, we don't have.
We have me?
No.
No.
No. Oh. Sì, non vuoi. Yeah.
All right, you can stay out there.
Then I don't know. No, it should be.
יש כבר 3 שנים. שזה ספר בלאגן. הוא היה משלם הכל, הרבנים. כל קידוש היה עושה $1,000-2,000.
אז הבת שלו היה שם.
כן, רגע, שם. הבת שלו הייתה גרה גם. היה להם בית קטן. נתן להם את המקום. Grab the plate and the cups.
לא?
הוא יושב פה בעיר. שנורים רובעים אליי.
הוא היה מדבק.
עבדנו. אבא שלו באיליסטר. Combine together, just put in the fridge, okay? Somebody come to me.
How many pots? How many pots is that? We'll see. Somebody else can have that. Several.
I know me myself, I'm an dentist twice. Yeah. So can you take one off?
Yeah, I did.
You did it already?
Yeah.
All right, so I showed you one. I don't mind, I just doing one. I just wondering.